In a stunning turn of events that's shaking the entire nation, the United States Supreme Court has just delivered a ruling that could change the future of immigration for millions of people. It's a decision that has sparked hope for some, fear for others, and confusion for nearly everyone. People are calling it one of the most important immigration rulings in recent history, because what the justices decided doesn't just affect those coming from other countries. It could reshape how immigration is handled in America forever. Early this morning, the court released an emergency order that effectively allows the U.S. government to move forward with major changes to immigration enforcement and protections. For thousands of immigrant families who have been living legally in the United States for years, this ruling hit like a thunderbolt. In one single move, the justices allowed the government to end certain protections for Venezuelan migrants under temporary protected status, something that had shielded them from deportation and allowed them to work legally because of the crisis in their home country. Overnight, more than 300,000 people went from feeling safe to suddenly fearing what might happen next. Across the country, there's a wave of anxiety. Families that once felt secure are now asking, will we be forced to leave? For many Venezuelan immigrants, America has been their only home for years. Their children go to American schools, they pay taxes, they work in essential jobs. But now, everything feels uncertain. Some say they don't even know what to tell their kids. Others fear that just going to work could put them at risk of being detained or questioned. The ruling didn't stop there. In another move that's drawing both support and outrage, the Supreme Court also allowed immigration officers to resume broader street stops and roving patrols, especially in major cities like Los Angeles. That means federal agents can once again question people and make stops based on what they observe, like someone's language, appearance, or behavior, as long as they say it's part of a broader investigation. Civil rights groups argue that this could lead to more racial profiling and unfair targeting, while supporters say it will help enforce immigration laws more effectively. This all started when lower courts tried to limit how immigration agents could operate in certain areas, saying that random stops based on appearance or language violated people's rights. But now, with this Supreme Court order, those restrictions are lifted. The justices didn't even provide a full written opinion explaining why. The decision came through what's known as the shadow docket, a fast-track process where major rulings can be made without detailed reasoning or debate. Critics say that's dangerous because it allows sweeping changes with very little transparency. For many legal experts, this marks a turning point. The Supreme Court has sent a clear signal. It's giving more power back to the executive branch to decide how to enforce immigration policy. That means federal officers, not judges, will now have more authority in deciding who stays and who goes. And that's where the controversy begins. In Los Angeles, community centers and immigrant rights groups are already bracing for what they call a new wave of fear. Volunteers are rushing to hold meetings, telling people what to do if they're stopped by agents, how to protect their legal rights, and where to find legal help. Some people are even choosing not to leave their homes, worried that a simple traffic stop could lead to detention. Across social media, hashtags like Stand with Immigrants and JAC Protect TPS are trending, while others defend the ruling, arguing that America must have the power to control its borders and enforce its laws. At the heart of this is a deep question that has divided Americans for decades. How far should the government go to enforce immigration laws? And what happens to those who have built their lives here under temporary protection? The Temporary Protected Status Program, or TPS, was originally designed to help people fleeing unsafe conditions in their home countries, wars, natural disasters, or political collapse. For Venezuelans, TPS meant safety from a country that has faced economic crisis, political unrest, and shortages of food and medicine. But with the court's latest decision, that safety net has been pulled away. For some, the ruling is seen as a victory for immigration control and national sovereignty. Supporters of the decision argue that temporary protection should be exactly that, temporary, and that the U.S. cannot keep extending it forever. They say the government needs flexibility to adjust. But for the families who now face deportation, it's hard to see it that way. Many of them have spent years here, bought homes, started businesses, and raised children who are American citizens. Now they feel betrayed and abandoned by a system they trusted. Outside the Supreme Court building in Washington, Protesters gathered within hours of the ruling. Some held signs saying families belong together, while others chanted, "No human being is illegal." At the same time, counter-protesters waved flags and cheered the decision, saying that it's time to restore order and put America first. The divide couldn't be clearer. Two sides of the same nation, both believing they're fighting for what's right. Meanwhile, inside the White House, the administration has praised the Supreme Court's decision, calling it a necessary step to enforce existing immigration laws. Officials say the goal isn't to target anyone unfairly, but to ensure that the system. They also argue that ending TPS doesn't mean immediate deportations. Instead, it means the status will be phased out, giving affected individuals time to make legal arrangements or apply for other forms of protection. But advocacy groups aren't convinced. They say the sudden shift will create chaos, pushing families into fear and uncertainty. Legal analysts say what makes this ruling so significant isn't just what it does, but how it was done. Because it came from the court's emergency docket, it bypassed the usual process of hearings and written arguments. That's becoming more common in recent years as the court uses this process to decide major issues quickly, often late at night, and without full opinions. Some scholars warn that this erodes public trust in the justice system as life-changing decisions now happen behind closed doors. For immigrants across the country, it's not just about legal documents, it's about human lives. In cities like Miami, Houston, and New York, Venezuelan families are gathering in churches and community halls trying to understand what the ruling means for them. Many say they feel invisible, as if the country they've contributed to for years no longer sees them. Some business owners say they could lose employees, while others worry their neighborhoods will empty out as families flee to avoid deportation. The emotional toll is heavy. Parents losing sleep, children crying at school, and entire communities living on edge. Even local officials are stepping in. In Los Angeles, city leaders are calling for restraint and transparency, urging federal agents to act responsibly and respect civil rights. In contrast, leaders in some other states are welcoming the ruling, saying it gives them more power to work with federal agencies and crack down on illegal immigration. It's a patchwork response that mirrors the broader divide across America, a nation torn between compassion and control. As the news spreads, immigration lawyers are being flooded with calls. Some say they haven't slept since the ruling came out. They're advising families to keep documents ready, avoid unnecessary travel, and contact legal aid immediately. For many immigrants, hope now rests on possible new lawsuits that could challenge the decision or delay its effects. Advocacy organizations are preparing appeals, but the road ahead is uncertain. Beyond the legal and political arguments, what's unfolding is a deeply human story. Imagine living in a country for 10 years, working hard, paying taxes, and raising your children, only to be told one morning that your legal protection has vanished. For thousands of Venezuelan families, that's not imagination. It's reality. Some say they can't go back to their home country where political persecution and economic collapse continue. Others say they have nowhere else to go. Their whole lives are now suspended, hanging by a thread of hope that something might change. Meanwhile, on social media, the debate rages on. Some Americans are expressing sympathy, sharing stories of immigrant friends, neighbors, and coworkers who are affected. Others are calling for stricter enforcement, saying the country can't support everyone who comes here. Politicians are also weighing in, some praising the court for restoring law and order, others condemning it as cruel and unjust. It's not just a legal decision anymore. It's a national conversation about identity, belonging, and the meaning of the American dream. Inside immigrant communities, a quiet resistance is growing. Churches, nonprofits, and volunteers are coming together to offer food, legal help, and emotional support. In small towns and big cities alike, people are standing in solidarity, refusing to let their neighbors face this alone. They're organizing rallies, writing letters, and demanding Congress step in with new legislation to protect those who lose TPS. For many, the Supreme Court's decision feels like a wake-up call, a reminder that rights can be taken away as quickly as they're given. Experts say this ruling could set a powerful precedent for the future. By allowing broader enforcement and ending certain protections, the Supreme Court has effectively given the government more control over who can stay in the country and who cannot. That means future administrations could expand or restrict immigration even more easily without waiting for Congress. It's a shift that could reshape the balance of power between branches of government and redefine America's approach to immigration for generations. Yet even amid the fear, there's resilience. Many immigrants say they're not giving up. They plan to fight for their rights in court, to lobby lawmakers, and to keep building their lives in the only country they now call home. Some say this struggle has brought their communities closer together, united by shared pain but also by hope. They believe that someday America will remember its values of fairness, compassion, and opportunity. For now, though, uncertainty looms. In neighborhoods across the nation, children are asking their parents if they'll still be here tomorrow. Workers are quietly saying goodbye to colleagues, unsure if they'll see them again. Families are updating legal papers, preparing for the worst, but still praying for the best. It's a heartbreaking reality that shows how deeply this Supreme Court decision cuts into the lives of ordinary people. As night falls in Washington, the lights of the Supreme Court building shine bright against the dark sky, a symbol of justice, but also of power. Inside that building, 9 justices made a choice that will echo for years to come. Some call it justice served, others call it a betrayal of America's promise. But everyone agrees on one thing: nothing about immigration will ever be the same again. What happens next will depend on how the government enforces these new powers, how communities respond, and whether Congress takes action to address the growing crisis. Will lawmakers create a path to citizenship for long-term TPS holders? Will they restore some protections, or will this ruling mark the beginning of a stricter era in American immigration policy? Only time will tell. For now, millions are watching, waiting, and wondering what their future holds. Across the country, from Florida to California, people are holding their breath. The Supreme Court's decision has drawn a line in the sand, a test of America's values and its commitment to justice. Whether history remembers this as a moment of courage or cruelty will depend on what happens next. But one thing is clear: this ruling has awakened a national conversation that can no longer be ignored. It has reminded everyone that immigration isn't just a policy. It's about people, families, and dreams. And tonight, as news spreads from city to city, America is left asking itself one powerful question: what kind of nation do we want to